Ooh, it has a little sound now.
That's new too.
Yeah. So hi there, everybody. My
Oh,
name's
wow.
Deb. I'm the founder of Find Calm here. We talk in our conversations on these virtual events around how to find calm in different methods, different ways, different structures and programs in how you can do that. Today, we're talking about location independence, and it's really something that actually inspired Find Calm here in a lot of ways. I've been in a community similar to Find Calm here, which is called Location Indie for about 2.5 years now. And it has helped me in my journey of leaving my corporate job. I had a community support me around giving me resources, how to learn how to do online business. I had a community of people to connect with in regards to masterminds and figuring out how to get feedback and building and creating the idea, which brought Find Calm here to life. So a lot of what we're going to be talking about tonight is the reason why we're here with the Find Calm here community. So I wanted to share that just to tell you a little bit about the background there. And then I wanted to introduce you to Rachel's story. And she is going to talk to us about location independence. And I met her through this location independent community. And so Rachel, why don't you jump in here and then share a little bit about, your backgrounds and a little bit about what you, and preface this by saying maybe favorite location that you've lived. That would be an awesome little thing to learn too.
Okay, sure. Well, my desire to become location independent was kind of born out of me moving to China. So first, maybe I should back up a little bit and tell you how I wound up in China in the first place. Back in 2008, that was when I graduated from university. This was also when the last big economic recession started to happen. And as soon as I graduated, I didn't really put a whole lot of effort into finding a job because I just went straight through high school, straight to university, and just decided that I wanted a bit of a break before jumping into the workforce. At the same time, my now husband, who I hadn't met yet, was moving to China because he graduated at the exact same time and he wanted to keep the adventure going, and he found an opportunity to teach English in China. Fast forward to 2009, after we had spent our first summer together traveling around the country, seeing live music. We met at a music festival. It's our favorite thing to do, is see live music. And we spent all of summer 2009 doing that together. And then by the end of that summer, I finally said, okay, I'm going to get a job using my degree now, which is in music business. But it turns out those are the first jobs to go in a major economic recession. So that didn't really pan out. And things kind of started to get kind of bad for us. Me and my now husband, we needed food stamps to, afford food. And we could barely pay our tiny little bit of rent to live in a friend's attic. And then the house got broken into and a lot of our stuff got stolen. A couple of weeks later, my car got broken into, and it was just a really bad situation all around, really not where we wanted to be in life. And my husband had always talked about going back to China to teach English. And at this point, I was so down and out, I just said, whatever, get me out of here. And so that's what we did. And living in China was great. It was really amazing. I like to call it the biggest love-hate relationship of my life because while it was amazing and rewarding and I learned a lot, it was certainly not easy. And when it came to being so far away from home, it wasn't so much the distance that bothered me as it was not being able to go home to visit whenever I wanted. At the same time that we were living in China, we both really got bitten by the travel bug after we did our first month-long backpacking trip around Thailand and Laos. Then between moving cities in China, we did a big 14-month-long backpacking trip. And that was where I got a sense of that freedom that location independence gives you, of just being able to pick up and move where you want and being able to control your own schedule. But that was just a gap year that we saved up lots of money for. And my husband was doing some freelance writing during that trip, but not anything that could sustain that sort of lifestyle long term. So after that trip, we moved to a different city in China, but that was when I realized that this lifestyle of sort of like the binge and purge, where you work a bunch to save up a bunch of money to then travel, to then spend all that money and then have to go back and find another job, I realized that that just wasn't going to be sustainable. So that was sort of where I got the motivation to really become location independent and figure out a way to travel while also making money and kind of live where I want, when I want, for as long as I want.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And you said you're in Mexico, right?
Yes,
Right now?
we are in Mexico now, in Puerto Vallarta.
Very cool. So you just got back, right?
We did just get back. This is our 4th stint here. And so to answer your question about the best place to be a digital nomad, I really love Puerto Vallarta. It's a beautiful city. There is an emerging group of digital nomad type people here. The amount of people here are becoming younger and younger. But also, I really enjoyed living in Medellin, Colombia as a digital nomad, because I would say that Medellin is probably the digital nomad hotspot of South America. So it's really easy to find like-minded people to connect with and find people who are working towards the same thing as you to collaborate with, or even just make new friends. So I would say Puerto Vallarta and Medellin, Colombia are my 2 favorite places so far. I certainly haven't been everywhere though.
Very cool. So wanted to just start with saying, I don't know if anybody, I know besides Rachel and I, a few people were talking about a little bit of interest in being location independent, or if you're not already there. But maybe Rachel, talk about your journey a little bit about, a little bit more in detail, like how, what were the steps as far as that goes? Maybe you could go into a little bit more detail about that.
Sure. So from China, my husband and I moved to Bali because there was the government of Indonesia has a cultural immersion program that they do at different universities all throughout Indonesia. But he really wanted to go to Bali because one of our really good friends that we knew from living in Beijing joined this program, and we went to visit him. And that is that trip was what really motivated my husband to suggest the gap year trip. So on our first ever trip to Bali, we were just sitting there on one of our last days, and we had been meeting other travelers who were also in the midst of a backpacking trip, a gap year trip. And their adventure was going to continue on to other parts of Indonesia and Southeast Asia. And Sasha was jealous. And while we were sitting by the pool one day, he said, "What if we did that? What if we, saved up money, quit our jobs, packed up all of our stuff, and just traveled?" And you might be surprised to believe that my knee-jerk reaction was no. Why would I want to do that? I like my lifestyle here. But I live to tell a good story. And the more I thought about it, I thought, well, that would actually be pretty cool, and that would be a fun story to tell. So then I told him, okay, we can do 6 months. But then I thought about it a little bit more and eventually decided that that wasn't going to be enough. We had to do a year. And so Bali is this really special place that kind of kicked everything off for us. So that's ultimately why we were able to become digital nomads, because my husband was accepted into the cultural immersion program. So we were moving to Bali. But then I started looking into opportunities for me, like what I could do while we lived there and earn money. I had been teaching English in China, and the market for teaching English in Bali is not that of China. There's really not a high demand. It's not very well paying. And most of the other jobs available in Bali for foreigners are really, really hard to get. You have to have some sort of specialized skill, because really they want those jobs to go to locals, as they should. So while we were in Bali, I knew that there was kind of like a time limit. We had saved enough in China for me to not really need a job while we were there, because my husband still had his freelance writing gigs. And if you live like a local in Bali, it can be very inexpensive. So we made a budget, we stuck to it, and we were fine. But the whole time I knew that living in Bali wasn't a forever thing, and I was going to eventually need to figure out a way to make money online or go back to teaching in China, which I didn't really want to do. So my husband's brother had taught English online through a program at his university at Michigan State. So I knew it was a thing. I knew that teaching English online existed. So I started looking into it, and it took a couple of months, honestly. I kept turning up dead ends, and over time, it didn't really seem like it was going to be a viable option. But finally, I did find a job teaching English online. And that was kind of my first step in becoming location independent. And I actually have created my own sort of 5-step method for becoming location independent that we can talk about. And that's just one of the steps. It's just getting a job that can earn you money online. But it's actually not my first step. But that, for me personally, that was my first step. But it's not necessarily what I recommend to other people.
Good leading question into what do you recommend how people start, because there's a lot of different ways to go location independent. So what's one of the things that you recommend people do to start?
The very first thing I recommend people to do is to get used to being uncomfortable, because being uncomfortable helps you become more adaptable. And I think being adaptable is probably one of the most important qualities you can have in becoming location independent.
Wow, it's really interesting that you say that, because I started doing travel and I'm location independent now, but I don't, and there's also we talked about a little bit in our call before about the designation between like what location independence really means. And so I consider myself location independent, but not like a digital nomad, right? So, but I made trips and I would like plan on my trips to do something that was outside of my comfort zone. So like I went zip lining one time, and I went skydiving, and I went and did a different tours and things like that, tried new food. So it's fun to like do all those travel things on the shorter trips. Because if you do plan to spend extended periods of time traveling, then like you're saying, you have this already built in that you're already kind of used to. Oh yeah, I'm already used to trying new stuff or doing new things, or maybe this isn't the best 4-star hotel, but it's what I could afford, and I'm so cool with that kind of stuff, right?
Right, exactly. Because when it comes to travel, I truly believe that Murphy's Law heavily applies to travel. In whatever can go wrong will go wrong. And it also depends on where you're traveling. But in certain places, you can almost guarantee that the internet's going to go out at some point. And so that's, as a location independent person who works online, you really need the internet. So you need to figure out how to adapt and sort of have a backup plan in case that happens, or at the very least, be super organized. And if you're the type of worker who needs to meet deadlines, make sure that you've got everything done in advance. And so it just kind of all ties back into being adaptable.
Sure, for sure. And you talked a little bit about living like a local. I wanted to kind of circle back to that because I thought that's a good point to kind of like pick apart a little bit, explain what you mean there.
Well, at least for me personally, in the places where I've been living and traveling, they've been developing nations that are widely set up for tourism. So in those types of places, you've got places that are meant for tourists where the price, like for restaurants, for example, where the prices for the food there is, it might be like what you're used to in the States, or it could be even more than that. But if you were to go to the restaurants where the locals eat, you will find that the food is just as delicious. It's much more reasonably priced, much more inexpensive, which then helps your money stretch further in allowing you to stay where you are. But I think the most important part of that in living like a local is that you actually get to know the locals. And I don't really see the point in traveling to another country if you're not going to get to know the local culture somewhat. So that's probably the biggest thing for me in traveling like a local is immersing myself into the local customs and culture.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that's a great tip. I just put a thing in the chat. If anybody wants to come on, unmute themselves to share a little bit about where they're at in their journey to location independence, you're certainly welcome to do that. And I wanted to just say, if you have a plan, we'd love to hear it. If you're like, I don't know what my plan is, that's cool too, because we can kind of help guide you with those maybe some resources that Rachel and I can point you to as far as like working on that plan and taking one step at a time. So I don't know if anybody else wanted to share. Did anybody else like raise your hand? Anna?
I'll share.
Sure.
Hey everyone, I'm Ani. It's my first time joining you guys, and this is fun. And as soon as I saw location independent, I'm like, me. Because a couple of years ago when I started, actually 2-3 years ago when I started my journey of, okay, I've been doing my business for 25 years and I absolutely love what I do, but there's only so much money I can make seeing patients one-on-one. So my goal is to create online courses so I can reach more people, which would allow me to actually, as long as I have internet, I can be sipping wine in, Avignon, or drinking my espresso in Tuscany, in Positano, whatever, and still do my online courses and have patients around the world. And that's what I'm working towards. Actually, today I sent out my very first landing page I created, and I sent out my very first email for my first course. And so very excited. Yeah, that's my plan. That's my goal. Not to be 100% location dependent, because I still love getting my hands on people and working one-on-one with patients, but at least a couple of months out of the years to travel and see as much of the world as possible, because I refuse to go anywhere twice until I've seen everything I want to see. That's it.
I think that's a really awesome rule that you have there. You don't want to go anywhere twice until you've seen everything. And yeah, like creating an online course, especially if you've already been doing one-to-one client work, is a really, really great online business model that will allow you to become location independent. So I think that's a really great plan. What kind of work do you do with one-on-one patients? I'm just kidding.
I specialize in pain relief. I do hands-on, very advanced pain relief techniques, but I also am a functional nutritionist and translational nutrigenomics.
Wow.
So I approach pain from genetics perspective, from functional nutrition, and from hands-on physical pain.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It sounds amazing. I love the detail that you were talking about in describing where you're going to be and what you're going to be doing, because that's a big factor, I think, in anybody's journey, is to have that visualization of,
oh, I have the visual.
I'm going to be here doing this. I love that. You coffee.
Trust me, yeah. I can see myself like walking down on, and I know the streets of Avignon, walking down, and on a weekend, I'm going to get a car, and it's about 45 minutes away from Avignon. It's a little town called Bellegarde, which is, in the summertime, the whole town smells like lavender because it's surrounded by lavender fields, and it's absolutely amazing. There's this amazing restaurant right on the river, and the owner is the sexy as hell. Sorry. But he is so hot.
Love it.
Yeah, that's
eating
great.
at his restaurant, the food is just So yeah, believe me, I have the visual. I know exactly what I'm going to do.
That's great.
That's amazing. I love that. So Alex was asking, and I was wondering too, as far as your plan for the course launch, or where are you at in that process? Have you built an email list yet, or where are you at with that?
So I do have my current, sorry, I didn't see your question, Alex. I do have, since I've been in business for a long time, even though I'm very passive, I'm a technician learning to be a business person. And for the longest time, I knew nothing about business. So I do have my clients that I send twice a month. I send regular newsletters. So I sent out, it's about 200 some people. So I sent out the newsletter today talking about my online course. But my goal is, I think I'm going to go. I have a couple of doctors, like few doctors refer me patients, and they're waiting for me to send them an email saying, okay, I'm ready to do the course, especially dentists. And so they're going to market for me. And I'm also going to go to some social media sites and start marketing. The first course, I don't want to have too many people, because if I fuck it up, I want to fuck it up to a small group instead of large group. So
test market's a good way to start. Yeah, beta
yeah,
testing.
so
Yeah.
we'll see. But I'm confident it's going to be, I call it neck pain relief at your fingertips. I'll be teaching self-help techniques for neck pain relief, specifically due to jaw clenching and grinding. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And those are live workshops, 2 weeks live workshops.
That's great. Wow. It sounds like
Yeah.
you've got your plan in place. And so you've got your destinations when we can travel, when you're ready to travel and all
Believe
that.
me, this is like about, like I said, 2-3 years of learning I'm like a one man show.
Yeah.
I'm rebuilding my website through Thrive Themes, with the Thrive Themes, because I don't want to pay anyone anymore to do anything on a website, put no one more coding or anything. So learning all that technical stuff, and it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of things. It's like I do 1 hour this, and then I change my hat. I do 1 hour of that. And then, but it's cool. I'm loving it.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing. I really appreciate
Thank you. Thanks for
learning more
listening.
about you, for sure. Awesome. Yeah, I really like the specificity. It takes a while, right? It takes a while. Rachel, how long did it take you to you have another blog besides the teaching English? Tell us a little bit about that.
Our blog is gratefulgypsies.com. And we actually launched it at the beginning of our gap year trip before we even knew the term location independence. And we launched it as a way to, keep our families updated on what we were doing and write stories about our trip. And then this was about the same time that certain travel blogs were kind of starting to blow up and get a lot of attention. And so I was like, you know what, if they can do it, I can do it. We've already launched a blog. That hard part is finished. There's absolutely no reason why I can't figure out how to, grow it and promote it and monetize it.
Very cool. I wanted to go back. Alex was saying about that he was a digital nomad. Alex, I don't know if you wanted to come on and just share a little bit about your journey, or if you had any resources or questions that you could share with the group, or you could just type it in the chat. That's fine too. But I wanted to just give that offering.
Hello, ladies. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. No, it's fortunate that I'm I guess the only male here. And are there any others in the comm community?
Oh yeah.
Oh, there are.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not the only one. I'm originally from San Jose, California, and I got the chance, about 5 years out of college, to work with a gentleman named Mike Geary, and that was when I went out to New York initially. I had just traveled back from Israel, and visiting Tel Aviv and Jerusalem for the first time on my own kind of spiritual journey. And I got a chance to meet a young man named Matt, who is a business partner now, and he was actually already working with this gentleman named Mike. And Mike he is like a pioneer in like this whole space. And he actually wrote a book called The Truth About Abdominals. And this was back in 2007. And so he's kind of like, really, first mover in like the entire internet marketing space. And yeah, he actually sewed into my first laptop. He was a very generous guy. And he kind of began to piqued my interest into this entire world of digital nomadship. And he actually got a chance to write a book with Tim Ferriss. So the 4 hour 4 hour cookbook. Yeah, it's really interesting. So lo and behold, Matt and I actually ended up meeting at a it was a digital marketers networking expo in the Jacobs building in New York, in Manhattan. So I ended up getting a scholarship there for an idea that I had to do online marketing and what the field that I'm in. And I've been passionate about meditation. And so Deb, that's how we got connected. And so lo and behold, it's just kind of, I like to use words like synchronicity. I feel like everything's kind of coming back together. And I feel like even like my voice and everything, like, yeah, I've created like all these different kinds of, I think it was probably selfish, like just doing art for myself, and trying to do licensing for film and this and that. But I think just after a lot of prayer and meditation, just like everyone here, you kind of begin to find your way. You begin to find your way and you begin to discover what are the gifts that I've been created with. Um, so now, just kind of keeping things hush hush because I've been reading things. I don't know, have any of you kind of gotten to that place where you talked about something and then that actually was counterproductive, to making it manifest? And because it's interesting, that's something I've been reading about recently, and that's yeah. So I just wanted to put that out. You know,
I
Can
think
you
I know what you
elaborate
mean,
a little bit?
but
Yeah.
yeah, share.
what's that? Ani, what was that?
Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. So I have a friend, Wendell, and Wendell, he grew up with like all of Jam Master Jay, like all the guys from like old school hip hop, and he was one of the original um, founders of Winter Music Conference. So this is before COVID hit, and you had all the dance music. And I was having a beer with him one day. This was in Asheville, North Carolina, and he said, "Alex, I usually keep all of my visions to myself." And it's interesting because I keep reading these things. I'm reading, different books and whatever, and it talks about there's a season when you're birthing something that sometimes it's actually good to be very quiet, about what you're doing. You actually kind of have to be like, I'm all into declarations, Ani. Like I love what you and Deb were talking about, like speaking it forth, especially, spending so many years in New York. You have to like, be quick on your feet and tell people and, be able to contextualize and express what it is that, your idea is in a very concise way. But, Wendell, who I respect a lot, was saying there's something very powerful spiritually about keeping something inside in that incubation period, until it's ready to move out. So yeah, just wanted to see, there's both, and I believe in the power of declarations as well.
I think like the way I think of it is there's a time to create and there's a time to consume. And then and I relate consuming to also kind of interacting with people. Like maybe I'm sharing, bouncing ideas off, and there's a time for that. But then, like, I came to a point with Find Calm here. I was doing partner meetups. I was asking them for feedback before we did the launch in June. And I was just finally, I'm like, okay, I just have to start making my own decisions and like not ask for the feedback and just go forward with one. However I'm going to do this is how I'm going to do it. And that was like a hard thing because I keep wanting to like, oh, well, what if they know something I don't know, or maybe there's something that they
Yeah.
can give me. But I think, is that kind of what you're saying?
So
Like,
so
kind of.
exactly where you're at. I just kind of hit that point too, where I have a, like you were saying, I think all of us have these groups of people that we consider maybe a mastermind or people that are, far ahead of us or people that we respect and we want to, ask for their opinion or pick their brain. But then sometimes, I think that we get into a place where we become people pleasing. We become complacent. And I just hit that like that wall. I think it was literally 2 or 3 days ago where I've had to make these decisions, and I'm like, you know what? At the end of the day, even if my business partner is here or this and that, there's certain things that I just have to, I can ask for feedback, but it has to be a crystallization of like what the vision that I'm getting from, in meditation, in prayer, whatever you call it, the Most High, and you just have to move forward and
Sounds
just
great,
flow.
though. It sounds
And
great that you're at
yeah,
that clear point. You're at that. It's an awesome place to be.
I think one of you had talked about. Oh, I think it was Rachel talking about how there was like a resistance point initially, like you hit this wall of fear, and yeah, I just feel like that sometimes is there. Like they say, fear is, what is it? False evidence appearing real. And there's this quantum thing. And they're saying this that even with spirituality. I consider myself a believer in Yeshua, but then there's a lot of like people that are very like they kind of go to the mosque or they go to like a temple or whatever. They're very religious, but they don't understand these quantum aspects, of like, no, this is a real thing. Like if you close your eyes, there are more than it's multidimensional, whether you believe it or not, like so this is that counterpoint of thoughts are things, the power of declarations, yes, but I think there's this clarity in like you don't know which people are your true friends and which people are there that are just like there to steal your idea,
Mm.
which people are there to just watch you and just wait until you fall, and then to be able to tell other people. So that's why in my meditation and prayers in this season, I'm like, I really enjoy this. I consider this a mastermind group of like-minded individuals, and yeah, I feel like location independence is very important, period, just because we're shifting, and I think that the producers, us, we're shifting into like, what we're really destined to do. There's that 20/80 rule, and there's 80% that are always going to stay consumers, you know
Sure, we need them, right?
I
We need
This is
them.
true.
If you're a creator, we need them. But also, um, everybody could be a creator. Everybody has gifts to give. So I think um, we're all consumers and creators in a way because we all need both to do both. We all need to create something and we all need to consume things, right?
Totally.
Rachel, well, thanks, Alex. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. I enjoyed listening to all that.
And I think he brought up a great point too, because he was talking about fear. And one of the biggest things that I think people think about when they say location independence is that sounds really scary. So maybe Rachel, you could talk a little bit about what you experienced and how maybe if there's a way that you got over the fear or how you experienced that.
Well, going back to what I had initially said was about feeling fear was when Sasha first suggested the idea of a gap year. And I was like, no, what? No, I like my life the way it is. And the way I was able to push past that was just thinking, just sort of imagining myself in that gap year and putting myself there and imagining what it would be like. And reminding myself that like, yes, like the making it happen, the getting to that point where you can just take off and go on a gap year, that part's terrifying, but you have to look past that to how rewarding the experience is going to be. And then what kind of person you're going to be on the other side of it. And I think that is a really good way to sort of push past fear and also remind yourself that like, yes, you're doing something different and doing different things is terrifying, but what if you didn't do it? And also another thing to ask yourself is just to really put into perspective, well, like what's stopping me? What's stopping me from making this happen? And I think when you ask yourself that question on a deeper level, you realize, well, there's really nothing stopping me from making this happen. And you could apply that to just about anything in life, whether it's becoming location independent or starting something new. What's stopping me? And also something that Jason Moore always ends every single podcast episode with is, if not now, when? And so I think asking yourself those three questions, like, what am I really afraid of? What do I have to lose? What's stopping me? And if not now, when? I think those three questions alone can really help you push past any fears that you're experiencing. Because even after, and for me, as you said, I'm a digital nomad, which I feel like is kind of a subset under the umbrella of location independence. And so for me, like, I still feel fear all the time, and I've been doing this for close to 5 years now. And so I just think it's important to understand that that fear is never going to go away. It matters more how you deal with it and push past it.
Wait, Deb, so I want to ask this. With that being said, um, I wanted to ask you ladies, if I provided you a product where I was creating very soothing music with my voice, would you is that something that you guys think would take off? Is that something that would sell? Is that something that you could incorporate to help battle this fear? Because that's what I was thinking in this pandemic. I'm like, I think people in general are just too consumed with the media. And if you have someone that can actually lead you, just like Ani, she's helping people and that they can trust with this spoken word and also with soothing music. It's a very simple, thing, but I just wanted to put that out there. Do you enjoy my voice? And is that something that you find soothing?
You
Like
do
for
have a very calming, sexy voice, gotta
Yeah,
tell you.
I was just about to say, I was just about to say
Awesome.
You do. I'm a straight shooter. You do. It's very calming. All I can say, just dim the lights down and let me
yeah.
hear you just softly speak. Yeah.
So that's gotten me in trouble because I've been a church guy, So then like they're teaching you to be like the exact opposite, and I'm like, it's really interesting. It's a interesting dichotomy.
I like the idea of the calm meditative state. I like guided meditations.
I
I
like
was,
I like what Ani's saying too. Put on the
I
put on the
was,
candlelight.
well, you could put on the candlelight and do meditations for sure. You could sit there on your cushion or however it is you like to meditate for sure and
Mm.
do that as well. Um, Priscilla was talking to me, and we were talking in our call last weekend. We had a meetup call, and I had mentioned about your music and your meditation, and so she was interested. So definitely, Priscilla, and you guys, you and Priscilla can sync up too.
We actually already connected
Oh,
via
great.
message, and we're gonna believe, right, Alex? We're gonna talk sometime next week. We're gonna have a video chat to discuss more.
That's
That's
great.
awesome.
I think
Yes.
that's what we're working on.
And ladies, so here's the initial. So I just turned the video off.
I
So
like it.
this is one of our logos from before. And I just got off another mastermind with another group, and yeah, I just wanted to see your feedback. How do you like the branding on that?
I like the way the rays are kind of coming out from behind the cityscape.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of like sun rays because to me, they represent, something new, something exciting, like the dawn of something new. And I also like, there's a lot of stuff going on in there. I like that you've got somebody hanging out on the roof and
Yeah,
birds
so
in the
that's
sky.
that's actually a picture of me playing the piano.
I was just gonna say, is there someone sitting there playing piano?
Yeah, and what's interesting is this actually goes into the digital nomad thing because I've lived in San Francisco. I grew up in the Bay Area, and then it has a picture of that the you have the Statue of Liberty because I lived in New York for 12 years. So it's kind of
So
interesting.
that's your journey.
It actually is the journey.
Ah.
Um and you guys don't so the whole concept is, coming from Mount Zion, I think it's this ancient principle. So that's going to be part of the whole ethos of everything. Is we live in like this fast food, you know, let's look at the 1 minute less the attention deficit disorder in America, right? Where the kids like don't even know anymore like who they are. Like it's
Mhm.
kind of it's crazy to me. Um so instead like ancientness, like sacred things, going to health and wellness too. I'm just seeing this whole thing that I never saw before.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Alex.
Yeah, that's awesome.
For sure. I wanted to let you guys know I put some links in the chat box there because we had brought up earlier the 4-hour work week, and I put that in there. That's like a go-to. So if you're interested in just like, that's the basic. If you don't do anything else, you should probably read.
It's like the Bible of
location independence, right?
Yeah.
So I would say start there if you're interested in taking that journey. For anybody who's watching the replay, I just want to mention that we will have these links in the show notes of our recording on YouTube. And but yeah, I wanted to share that in Jason Moore's podcast. Jason is the co-founder of Location Indie, the group that Rachel and I are in. He's actually in Norway right now, and he and another person named Travis, who runs a podcast called Extra Pack of Peanuts, actually created a digital product first. And actually, they had the podcast. So they each had their own podcasts. They grew those podcasts. They came together and they launched a digital product. And then from that digital product, they launched a community. So those were like their steps. And I'm summing it up very quickly, but those were their steps in the location independent journey. And now they have a community of over 300 people that are on a global scale that connect and support each other in businesses and masterminds and groups and become partners and all of these amazing things. So there's lots of resources out there for you guys if you do need support around, like, I know you were talking about technology, and I struggle a lot with technology and learning new platforms all the time. So I'm in the process of learning some new ones right now. And sometimes I look for help, and I do hire a graphic designer for the Find Calm Here website I did, because I just realized that I needed that support because I was learning other things. But sometimes you need the help, and you do need to rely on some people. But the journey is long. But there's a lot of so give us our list, Rachel, because you said about a list. I want to make sure we get that in here.
Sure. I just want to sort of add on to what you said, that the journey is long. I always tell people that the journey to location independence is very much a marathon and not a sprint. And you need to maintain the same determination that you started with, but also have patience with yourself and understand that it takes time. And also realize that it's also about the journey. And one thing I also want to mention is that one of the biggest things that joining Location Indie did for me was make me realize that I was already location independent, that I just needed help in sort of building up my own online business. So let me talk about this list, because step number 1 is get used to being uncomfortable, because it makes you more adaptable. And step 2 is find a way to make enough money online to pay your bills and meet your basic needs. And the reason why I make this step number 2 is because so many people get hung up on the idea of, oh, I need a remote job. I need a really good, high-paying remote job with all these benefits in order to become location independent. And they just get so like into that idea, and so they don't ever make it. They give up, they get discouraged because they don't find that right away. And so I think it's important to kind of go back to basics and understand that you're starting something new completely from scratch. And not to say that there's some sort of like ladder to location independence, but it's understand that you might need to start small if you're not like, you know, a programmer or a graphic designer or something that can bring in big bucks. You need to start small. You need to figure out a way to just earn $1 online, because then that is a baby step that you can then celebrate and will give you motivation to keep moving forward. Because if you can earn $1 online, you can earn $10 online, you can earn, and then you can turn that into $100. And so that for me was teaching English online. And to be perfectly honest, I really enjoy teaching. I do. But teaching was never my passion. You know what I mean? It's not like I went into teaching with some mission to shape the youth of the world. I'm not saying that I don't want to do that, but I don't consider myself a teacher by trade. It's just something that teaching English is something that I'm good at. I do enjoy it. But ultimately for me, it was about the lifestyle. And so I was able to use that job teaching English online to create more free time for myself to work on the things that I was more passionate about, so to speak, the ways that I wanted to create other income streams. And that is actually step number 3 in my process. So just to recap, make sure you're adaptable, find a way to make enough money online to pay your bills and meet your basic needs, and then start thinking about other streams of income. Because as we've all seen over the last couple of months, you never know. Something like a crazy pandemic could come and change everything. And that might cause one of your jobs to decrease, your income in one job to go down, and maybe one of your other ones will go up. So it's a really good sort of kind of financial safety net to figure out a way to have multiple streams of income. In case something crazy happens to one of them, you don't have to freak out and go find a cubicle job somewhere.
Yes. Brings us to the topic, right? Find
Right.
calm with location independence.
Right.
And, you know, my excitement about leaving my corporate job and the reason why I was so adamant in leaving that job, even though it was like really scary when I did that in December, was that I had stress and anxiety and I just was miserable and I wasn't a nice person. And I was like, you came over to my cubicle and I'd be like, what do you want? Like I'd be this horrible person. And that's not who I am, obviously, but that brought that out in me. And so what brought me calm was leaving that corporate situation, even though I do still have anxiety. It didn't all go away. I still have anxiety about different things, about figuring out money. I didn't know we were going to have a pandemic, for example. You have to be resilient, like you're talking about adaptable, because I had a plan in the beginning of the year to do sales and then that, you know, didn't work. And then I tried to do Find Calm Hair. And so that hasn't brought revenue right now. So I keep pivoting. And now I have a whole nother career that's community design that I'm working with clients in consultation. And now that's my location independent business. But who knew in December?
Right, exactly.
All that was going to happen.
You never know. Yeah, exactly.
So even when you think you have a good plan about
Mhm.
it, which is great to have a plan. I mean, I don't recommend somebody being like, well, I'm going to quit my job tomorrow. Forget about it.
Definitely
Right?
don't do that.
Don't do that. But you know, have a plan, but then like you're saying, be resilient and adaptable to like, okay, what are other ways to, because there's so many different ways to.
There are so many different ways, but I think the most important step in the process is showing yourself that it is possible to make money online and giving yourself that extra confidence and boost in motivation. So the last 2 steps in my 5-step process are a bit specific to being a digital nomad and not just location independent, but I think you could also apply them in general to location independence. Step 4 is to ease yourself into working while traveling. But you could also say that you should ease yourself into working at home, because working from a home is also a completely different ball game if you're not used to it, and figuring out how to manage your time while being productive. And finding a work-life balance all falls into this step 4, which I just want to say that I still struggle with the work-life balance. I'm much better at it than I used to be, but that for me has been the biggest struggle. And so I feel like location independence doesn't just start with being able to make money online. There's so much that you need to think about and consider once you've gotten that job, because it's completely different from anything you've ever done. And one of the examples, at least if you want to become a digital nomad specifically, which right now isn't really an option, but previously the advice I would give people would be to start off in your home country, where you can speak the language and it's a lot easier to communicate, and that's going to be less stressful and less overwhelming than jumping straight into a multi-month-long trip in a foreign country.
Cool.
And I think that you can still go ahead with this step right now. And it's actually easier to accomplish this step because the vast majority of us can only travel in our home country at the moment.
Right. Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, I mean, I guess it depends on what country you're in. I spent all summer in the US kind of rediscovering my own backyard and going to places I had never been before. And I loved it. Like the US specifically has so many amazing places to offer to travelers.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people did. I know I went road tripping this summer, and I know a lot of people did that. So we got out there and experienced our own country. I can't wait to go travel the, other countries though, for sure. I
Right.
think you made a really good point about trying to understand time management, and balancing and establishing, like, are you going to go somewhere for a week? Are you going to go somewhere for a month? Because it's different situations, right? If you're just going somewhere for a week, you might not need a whole lot of equipment, but maybe your job requires that you need a lot of things. And so it's better
Right.
for you to be in some place for a month at a time. I know that was brought up in some other conversations I've heard with people who are traveling. And, you might want to try to pack everything in a book bag, but then that might not make sense for you. Like I was trying,
Exactly.
the trip we did in California, I actually checked bags, and I've never checked bags. Like this whole 3 years that I've been starting to travel, I'm like, nope, I got my rolly and I got my bag, and that's all I need.
Really?
I don't need anything else. And then
Interesting.
okay, I kind of need another bag. And then we bought stuff, and I had to buy a rolly so that I could bring it back home.
Right. Oh, that was me the first time, our first month-long backpacking trip in Thailand and Laos. One of my friends even told me, he was like, don't take a lot of clothes because you're going to buy a bunch of them. And I didn't listen and had to get a new bag to get all my new clothes home.
Yeah. It's funny, but it's good. It's a good point to just talk about, like, I think I was wanting to do the travel and working too, but I realized that I really like a home base. So
Right.
there's people that live in their vehicle or live, in their out of their book bag, right?
Right.
I guess true digital. Is that what they call them? I don't know. That's the true digital
My
nomad.
personal opinion of a digital nomad is someone who doesn't have like an official home base and really does pretty much travel with everything that they need at all times. Like I consider my backpack to be my house. And I'm very jealous of people like you who are able to go carry on only. And I've always like wondered what that could look like for me, but I've finally just accepted that it's not possible. It's not possible because our tagline for our blog is improvise your life. And that's really what we do. We improvise our lives, and we never know where we're going to be at, 5 months from now. Like right now, I'm planning on being in Puerto Vallarta all winter, but I know that we can only stay here until the end of November. And so at the end of November, we could potentially be coming back to the US if the situation doesn't look good here or we can't find a place that we like. So it's impossible for me to become carry on only. But Deb, what you said about figuring out what you like, that is the perfect segue into step 5, which is to experiment with different strategies to see what works best for you. As you said, you like having a home base, you like having a place to return to. I don't really care to have a home base right now because, well, for a lot of different reasons, but that's one of the reasons why we came back to Puerto Vallarta, because I have no interest in renting a place in the States because that means I have to buy furniture. And that's like the absolute last thing I want to do. And all summer long, we were either staying with family or with friends. And so one of the big reasons why we wanted to come back here to Puerto Vallarta, not only because we love it, but just to kind of have our own space and not be, staying with family and friends and bothering them and being in their space. So like you said, you like having a home base. I don't. Some people might really enjoy living out of a van. And also, if you are going to be a digital nomad, you have to figure out your travel speed, because when we finally, after Bali, I got the online teaching job. We went back to the States and we were just traveling around the States for 6 months, kind of testing the waters to see if it was going to work. And then when Sasha, my husband, also started teaching English online and we decided it was going to work, we started traveling in Mexico. But we were trying to go at the same pace that we went on our gap year, which was like breakneck speeds. Like the longest we stayed in one place was a week. And we tried to do that when we got to Mexico and burned out super fast and quickly realized that that travel speed just wasn't going to work for us mentally, physically, just wasn't going to do it. And so we realized that we needed to figure out places where we could stay for a month, maybe 3 months at a time. So we have enough time to do all of the things. I like to say that when you're a digital nomad, your time is split into 3 different categories. You've got work time, which is obviously important, and you've got sightseeing time because you want to get to know the places you're in, and then you've got socializing time, which is meeting new friends, going out to dinner, going to movies, whatever you like to do in your spare time. And as a digital nomad, especially if you're teaching English online, when you're staying in a place for a week, you don't have time to do but maybe a couple of those things. And when it comes to just a 24-hour period, you can maybe fit in 2 of those 3 things into a day. All 3 is just exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny too, is I related just because I was doing travel writing when I was traveling in a lot of the places that I was going. And so I was working, I was traveling, but I was also like trying to pay attention and make sure I get like, where we were and what we're doing and like who's doing what and names if I needed them. And so I was working, making sure I'm getting angles in the right, like horizontal for like this publication. So there's a lot of stuff that's going in my mind. And then I can't really necessarily enjoy it like I would if I was just a tourist, for example. So I think there's times when you like say, okay, these are the places where I'm going to be doing an assignment for somebody who might be a travel writer, or like going out and doing blogging and things like that. Cause you still, even if you're just doing a blog and if it's not for publication, you still want notes and to kind of keep track of where you're at and what photos go with what.
Exactly.
So it's like you almost want to have like 2 experiences. You want to have like, okay, this is when I'm going to be doing some documenting, and then okay, I'm going to put the camera down, put the notepad down, and just kick back and have a glass of wine and have a great night in this amazing space and be mindful of the destination. And what's funny is Find Calm here started as a travel blog, and it started as a highlighting mindful destinations of calm. And a year ago, that's what I thought this was going to be. And it transformed into this amazing community of people who are sharing all their resources around finding calm. I'm so happy that you were here to join us. And you talked a little bit about improvising. And so I wanted to know, we will have your blog and things like that. So if anybody wants to connect with Rachel or see her blog or learn about her, you have a course, I think, coming up, right?
I do. So as you can maybe tell, I think that if you have no idea where to start as far as like earning that first dollar online, I truly think that teaching English online is really one of the best, fastest ways to do that. And so I've created an online course called Teaching for Freedom that teaches people exactly how to do that, how to identify what you can count as teaching experience, and then skills and things that you need to get the job. I introduce a lot of different great online English teaching jobs and walk you through the application process for each one. And then the remainder of the course goes into what I was talking about finding a work-life balance, not getting burned out, about the travel aspect. And I'm going to open the doors up to that course at the end of the month. But if you would like to get a reminder about that, I have my free ebook called How to Live Abroad and Travel the World as an Online English Teacher. And then downloading that book will then get you on the email list, and then you'll be the first to know when the doors open to the course.
Is that on your website here?
It is.
Okay, I want to make sure. I'm going to put that in the chat, but if there's a better link, you can throw that in the chat as well, for sure. Did anybody have any questions for Rachel? I know we're just right at 8 o'clock, but I just want to make sure I asked if anybody had any questions real quick that they wanted to ask while we have Rachel here.
I had a question. Rachel, in the traveling space, I think you said that there was a lot of interest. I think it was a year or so, 2 years ago, and since the pandemic hit, have you noticed that there has been like a little bit of hitting a wall in terms of seeing your network grow because of saturation, or how has that been?
Yes, I had my audience has definitely grown over the last couple of months, especially as people have lost jobs and they're looking for a way to work online, or maybe people who didn't lose their job, but they don't want to go back to the office. They don't want to commute. They're looking for a way to work from home. And so I've definitely seen an increase in my audience of people who are interested in those topics. And I've also seen an increase in my audience of not necessarily people who are looking to pivot in their professional life, but people who have suddenly found themselves with a remote job because their offices said, we're closed for the foreseeable future. You can all work from home. And so I have a lot of friends and other people who have found my blog who are like, oh, well, now I can literally work from anywhere. Where should I go? And how do I do that? So I've definitely seen an increase on both fronts.
Thank you so much. I wanted to share that next week we're going to have, you talked a little bit about improv. We are going to have Gary Ware. He's going to talk to us about finding calm with public speaking through improv, which is going to be super fun. We're going to have some interactive, hopefully some fun interactive improv games. I actually took a level 1 improv class 3 years ago because I wanted to be better at public speaking. I still have a lot to work on there. I took another level 1 class 2 years ago. I was supposed to be taking a level 2 improv class. I had one class and then the shutdown happened.
Oh, no.
So I'm really excited. I'm probably going to be doing some training in the new year on improv because I really think that that's a really great way to deal with getting out there and getting over maybe some of your anxiety around being in public. And believe me, it's not easy to be on camera and see yourself in a video, I think, right, Rachel?
Oh, man. Definitely not.
It's not easy, but it's like you just got to get over that that hump if that's something that you want to do. Not everybody wants to be, you know, on a camera. That's fine. You don't have to be, but
right.
Some people, you know, would like to, but they just have a hard time with that. So I think that's one way. Improv is one way. So we'll talk about that next week. So I hope to see you all on that call. It's at 7 p.m. again, Eastern time, next Wednesday. We did just launch it. I'm going to be working on it a little bit better, but I'm going to launch a podcast and it's going to be coming up here like a little bit before our virtual event. We're going to have an interview like we do the Facebook Lives. I don't know if some of you know, but we do like a Facebook Live and I do a replay of the recording of an interview with the partner that I have a few days before the event, but we're now going to do a podcast. So I just have been working all day to set that up and I'm going to keep working to make that a really cool experience and do the best I can to share that as another resource for you guys to kind of connect a little bit more with these partners, because honestly, that's the whole reason for Find Calm here, is to connect you as people who are looking for calm with people that may be able to help you in finding your way to calm. And location independence was definitely one of my paths to finding calm. And now it's helped me to create this community. So thank you all for being here. If you guys have questions for Rachel, if you do want to follow up with her, she put her links in the chat. You can also save the chat with the 3 little dots if you did want to do that with the resources here. If you press the 3 little dots, if you're on a desktop, not a mobile, you press the 3 little dots and you can save the chat. There will also be a replay. It's going to go on our YouTube channel. That will be available with our show notes as well. And then our YouTube channel is now available on the findcalmhere.com website. I'll add the drop down. So thanks all for being here. In the Find Calm Here community, you can definitely connect with Rachel as well to go further in those conversations. And there is a conversation going on right now about location indie and location independence in the Find Calm Here community. I put a little chart up there so you can chat about that and share any other experiences you have there. So thank you all with that. I will appreciate your time.
Thanks for hosting, Deb.
Thank you. All right. Well, have a good night, everybody.
All right.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.